Okay, we have a very special guest for the next couple of seconds.
Mhm.
My 6th grade son would
Uh-huh.
like to be on our podcast.
Okay.
So go ahead, kid. The mic's live. What do you want to say?
Hello.
Yeah, get a little closer in there.
Hey.
Hey.
Get out of here, kid! Get out of here, kid! I tricked him. I surprised him. Can I put peanut butter on bread and toast it?
Yeah.
I can't. I'm in the middle of the podcast.
Alright, cool. So can you...
Nope, shut the door. Bye. Love you. Bye. Okay. So he was like, "Can I have a snack?" No. Oh, I love trash pizza. Oh, I love just the worst, nastiest pizzas.
Someone draw Ray as a raccoon eating shitty pizza.
Just dumpster pizza. Just little Caesar's pretzel crust pizza. Delicious.
The forbidden pizza.
But this isn't about pizza. This is about taking a deeper look at the play experience and the finer details of running and writing games.
Yeah, hosted by us, two queer women, speaking with authority about games and about shitty pizza.
And also, we swear, obviously.
Yep. And you can go right ahead and die mad about it.
I'm mad about it.
I'm Monica, a lover of Little Caesar's pretzel crust pizza.
That's good. Get it out.
Yep.
The first step to healing is to admit the damage.
Who are you?
I'm Ray. I'll eat just about anything that's got a tomato sauce and white cheese on it. So, is that pizza? Who can say? This has been Pizza Experience.
Pizza Experience. That's our new show. That should be our bonus content.
Bonus Pizza Experience.
Yep. What are we actually talking about?
Oh, today is one of our How Do You episodes. It's on the outline. It's How Do You ... The series.
It could be pronounced How Do You.
How do you? So how do
you surprise your players?
How do you surprise your players?
Yep. I recommend hiding behind something and then leaping out
and shouting surprise.
Shouting surprise. Yeah. Yeah. That fails.
All right, that was great. So everybody get out. No. We're talking about like secrets and twists and, surprising your players, pulling something up that makes them go, "What? Oh my god."
Yeah.
And, I'm led to believe that this is a tricky thing to do.
It is a tricky thing
to do. We're going to talk about it.
And this is going to be more like a one-shot episode where this is a thing that Ray is definitely better at than I am. So we'll defer to your expertise this time.
I don't know if it's that I'm better at it so much as I love to try to do it. So I guess I got more practice because I love looking for opportunities to spring a surprise on a player, because that's one of my favorite things in an audience is to like make them go, "Oh, what?" Like I love that stuff.
Well, maybe you can help me remember the times I've pulled this off, because I was struggling to do so while writing the outline.
I was struggling to think of one from one of your games too, and I couldn't. Your a lot of your excitement doesn't come from surprise or twist, and that's okay too. Like, we should probably touch on that as well. Like, it's okay if you just don't want to try to surprise people, if you aren't comfortable doing it, if you feel like you can't pull it off. You don't have to. A game doesn't have to have a surprise twist ending, or he was the traitor the whole time. Your game doesn't need to have those things. But if you're interested in it, let's
Yeah, we will get into the things I like to do under the rest of the topic. So,
yes,
let's talk about this fine art. How do you surprise your players?
Okay, so first thing, very important. The best secret is something your players have the potential to guess. And this can be a tricky line to walk, because you probably, like, your first instinct is probably to be like, well, I don't want it to be so obvious that they all guess and it wasn't really that much of a surprise, but you don't want it to be so secretive that it comes out of left field and blindsides them, because instead of them being delighted like, oh wow, that's so cool, they might end up more frustrated than anything. You do not want to pull an Edgar Allan Poe Murders at the Rue Morgue on them. If you don't know what I'm talking about, the short story is probably for free online. I mean, it's Edgar Allan Poe. It's a lot of people cite it as like the forerunner for like the modern like detective story, and it has a lot of the same tropes in it, like, you know, the detective at the end like naming the culprit and then explaining all his deductions and blah blah. But what I hated about Rue Morgue was there was no fucking way the reader could have guessed who the culprit was, because there's a murder and all of the clues are weird and random and nobody can figure it out, but the detective's like ha, and at the very end he, you know, divulges who the murderer is. And I will spoil it for you all because there's no, I mean, this is such a batshit crazy out of left field thing to do. I guess skip ahead a couple of minutes if you don't want to know how this
spoilers for a story that's over 100 years old. Yeah.
Yeah. It turns out it was an orangutan that had escaped from the zoo.
Oh, okay. I know about this story.
Yes, there's no possible way that you could have seen that coming. And for some people, that's not a big deal. For some people, it's like, oh, but it's still a good story. But for me, for someone who loves foreshadowing and loves to try to figure out puzzles, that was just infuriating. Like, it felt like cheating. So that's all a really long roundabout way of saying, make sure that you remember the best secret is something your players could actually guess. Something they had the potential to guess.
Yeah, that's very good advice. I usually don't, like we said, I usually don't try to surprise people, though I will occasionally conceal like an NPC's identity, and then seed clues to who this person might be. And like the intention is usually that someone will figure it out, though not. I generally prefer to be obvious enough that someone else not involved in the scene knows who it is. And so I have one player who's like biting on their hand because they know who this other player character is talking to.
That's good shit. That's awesome. Yeah. That's classic dramatic irony.
But the player involved in the scene doesn't.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
If I can pull it off, it's good. I can't always pull it off. But if I'm going to set something like that, I always try to set up something that I'm going to pay off. Chekhov's gunning all over the place. Yes. Or if I forget, I'll magician's force it back in later. And that, like, sometimes I'll set things up that people will decide as a setup later, or like I'll just throw away a thing and people are like, you meant to surprise me with that. And I'm like, yeah, totally.
Yep, you nailed it.
Yep, nailed it. And so that way everything seems planned from the beginning. Spoilers, it was not. I'm also the first to admit that I am miserable at not being ham-fisted. So sometimes I'll start to establish a mystery and my players will figure it out like right away. Oh well. Listen, action and melodrama is where I got it.
Well, I mean, like I said, the best secret is one they have the potential to guess. I'd rather figure out something that was set up as a secret and then wait in anticipation for it to like, ta-da, and be like, yay, I guessed it, than to just be like completely blindsided by something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So how do you keep anything a secret?
Okay, so there's acting, which for some people it's just a matter of like, can you keep a poker face? The thing about being a GM is the thing about being a GM is in tense situations, your players will probably be overinterpreting your every expression anyway. So I stopped putting pressure on myself to have like the perfect blank expression, because I knew if I like lingered too long on a joke or smiled at something or whatever, they'd be like, "What? Oh, what's that? Oh, he's really the traitor!" And I'd be like, "I was just, I just was smiling. I don't know." So I stopped putting pressure on myself to like try to act my way through, manipulating them basically, because I realized it was a lot of wasted effort. And once I stopped feeling that pressure, it actually was a lot easier to keep my face carefully blank.
Oh, okay. Well, see, I'm physically incapable of this, which is not really to say that I have a bad poker face, but more that, like, if I'm playing a game, like a war game or whatever, I can keep a poker face about my, like, having a good hand or whatever. If I'm running a game, it's a different kind of energy, so I'm like,
you don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
Like that. Like,
yeah. I'm just
you fell for it.
Yeah, I'm just the worst.
Yeah.
It's a little bit easier for me to maintain secrets and set things up online because no one can see me be giggly.
Yes, true.
And I can rethink what I'm going to say before I hit send. I do a fair amount of thinking with my mouth while I'm running in person. Yeah, right now I'm in my Through the Breach game. I'm struggling to conceal the true nature of an extremely powerful NPC, and the best I've been able to do that, like, Terra has way more going on that is perhaps not necessarily in the player character's favor than they are aware of online, because I can kind of rethink everything she says, and like it's a challenge to portray this character because she's definitely the player's ally. She's their friend. She's not their enemy, but she is extremely threatening, and I have to have her be really subtly dangerous without her being threatening towards the player characters.
That's a hard line to walk, right?
Right?
Yeah. It's tricky. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's going to be some pretty big reveals come next game.
I'm going to want to hear about it.
You sure will, because
I love hearing about shit like that.
That's in 2 weeks.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Actually, one of my favorite pictures of me from several years ago was my old house group when I used to live with a whole bunch of people, and we would game like all the time because I was their live-in GM. They took this fantastic picture of me, like in the middle of my coy GM smile. It was a perfect candid of me being like, "I got you."
One of the like some weird advice I have for getting a better feel for game Poker Face is to read the modules, like old ones, new ones, whatever, for the Tomb of Horrors, because it has all these sidebars about what the GM should say or what you should tell your players when they go to like inspect things. And the Tomb of Horrors is like an infamous. I mean, if you don't know what the Tomb of Horrors is, it's an infamous Dungeons and Dragons dungeon that's full of just the most ridiculous, stupid traps.
I mean, it's literally intended to kill all the player characters.
Yes, you have the potential to notice, oh, this might be a trap, if you pick up on all the clues. So the module is really carefully written, and I recommend reading through it and just paying attention to how like the advice it gives you on how to describe these things to your players so that they're not really sure where the trap is or if it is a trap or what it does. Like I thought it was really cool. It's in the newest one is in what is it? The portal, the yawning portal. I think it's just called the yawning portal. I think I just named it. Whatever.
Is it the one with the sphere of annihilation in it? And
yes. Yeah.
If you put yourself in it, you just die.
You just die. It's just the stupidest fucking traps in there. There's one that like switches your alignment. There's one that teleports you one place and all your gear to another place, so you pop out the other end naked. Like just really stupid traps. But yeah, read it. It's powerful. So beyond the actual like the acting technique, there's two ways I tend to manipulate the players into their secrets, basically. I will either withhold information from the players or I will withhold interpretations. I'm much more a fan of using the latter because then I'm not technically hiding anything. I'm just letting the players come to their own conclusions, whether they're correct or not, and just kind of let them run with that.
Oh, can you give me some examples of what you mean?
I can. Here I go. So withholding information would be the players have failed to notice clues that would give the surprise away, or that would, basically clue them into what's really going on. For example, the players were unable to uncover the fact that the victims in this murder case they're investigating were all killed at night and died of blood loss from bite wounds. So because they missed those clues, they're going to be surprised when they find out the murderer is a vampire. So that was withholding information. Withholding interpretation would be the players have the clues, they found all the information, but you don't give them any insight on context or how the clues all fit together and let them do that themselves. So that would be something like they realize the victims were all killed at night and died of blood loss from their bite wounds, and then they conclude, okay, this was a vampire, which means it'll be a surprise when actually it's a werewolf. They came to the wrong conclusion.
Right.
Those are the two main ways that I like to keep things a secret and surprise them. Especially, like I said, especially on the latter one, because all I'm doing is telling you what you see. Like, as a GM, I feel like that's like your main goal, is to just describe what they perceive and the the consequences for the shit that they do. So if I just describe it to you and you go, oh well, clearly this is the work of the fairy prince, it's like, all right, sure. I'll just, if you want, cool, sounds great.
Sure. Sounds good to me.
And they might look at me like, is that right? And I'll be like, unless they have a roll investigation, it's like, all right, yeah, cool. But if they never try to check with me, it's like, yeah, all right, that's what you think is going on, sounds good.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Defining it as such was like not a term I had really ever thought about.
Yeah.
So it's just cool to hear like, oh, okay, that makes perfect sense to me to not define interpretation. Though I tend to be cagey about not defining interpretation. So if someone is like, is it a werewolf? And I'm like, I don't know. They're like, yes, you do. Stop it. usually my players will call me on that. And I'm like, I'm not going to tell you.
In a lot of games, there is usually a skill tied to interpreting information. But a lot of players will fail to use it, or they just don't have a high, like, who the fuck puts points in investigation in a Dungeons and Dragons game? So a lot of the times, if they, okay, well, it, this and this and this and this, and they'll just state, oh, it's probably a vampire.
Right.
And nobody rolls anything. They just go with it. It's like, all right, cool. But if they ever came to me with like, okay, I want to roll an investigation check, does this fit with what I know about this murderer over here and blah, 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 I'd be like, oh yeah, cool. Okay, now the dice are involved. I can give you answers. You might have a seat. We touched on this like really early on in the bonus experience. If a player is about to figure out your secret, let it go. Like, don't be like, no, and suddenly drop all these roadblocks and blocks in front of them. Like, you didn't roll high enough. You don't know that. Just let them figure it out, man. If you've got this great twist coming, but they roll really great, or they ask just the right questions, or if somehow they get a hunch that's absolutely correct, don't be an asshole. Don't be like, no, now it's really something else instead because you ruined my plan.
Just an orangutan the whole time.
You just keep your mouth shut until the game reveals it, and then you can be like, yeah, you did it. You solved my orangutan puzzle. No, it was an orangutan. Fuck you.
Yeah. Speaking of being mad about orangutans, let's go to the mid-episode break.
What?
Yeah, I don't know. Now, BXP and the mid-episode break room are brought to you by the Misdirected Mark Network.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Great.
I mean, I just copied this over from the previous episode, but hey, let's just do it again. Huge shout out to our artist and graphic designer, Nino Studios. She designed our logo, our banner, our t-shirt, and does absolutely incredible work. So if you are a professional looking to hire a graphic designer, please hire her and tell her BXP sent you.
And remember, that's Neno.
Yes.
Nino Studios.
No, it sounds like it's spelled with an I, but it is not.
This is important.
Yeah.
Don't fuck it up.
Don't fuck it up. And
Yeah.
she's on Instagram and Facebook as Nino Studios. All you gotta do is look it up and you will find her and her portfolio.
Hey,
I
think I started it exactly the same way last time too.
Probably.
Hey, if you were a hot dog, sorry, you should become a BXP patron. Why not?
Yeah, you should. You should toss.
Did you
some
know
money.
we have a Patreon? I hope so, because we've been talking about it for like 2 months now. Even $1 a month will get you access to our pre-production notes and our outline, mini episode of bonus content every month. Also, if you'd rather support BXP without committing to the monthly Patreon payments, you can still buy us coffee. Coffee.com/bonusexp. Wait, coffee.com/BXPcast.
I'm not sure.
Coffee.com/bonusexp.
It's on our How to Give Us Money page.
I'll edit in the right one. Also, you can buy our stuff, including products made by our guests. And you can check out our brand new merch page. There's t-shirts, there's mugs, there's phone cases. Treat yourself to something cool. Support us while doing it. bxpcast.com/bxpswag. How's that?
That's very good.
Okay, good. Thank
you. You did it. You did it good. You did it good.
I did it.
Anyway, if you like BXP, you'll love the Misdirected Mark Show Wednesday evening podcast All-Stars. Brett, Tom, Kevin, Chris, and Andy get together to play games that get edited down into an audio drama for your ears. Join this crew of all-star players as they create stories from the games you love.
Sounds awesome.
And that is the same Chris that's been on all the other ones, who I'm maybe eventually going to do like a Monica and Chris or Snotty About Things show with. So
the Monachris.
Yes. Which we're not going to call it that.
Nope, because that's terrible.
But I also said our tagline wouldn't be change it if you want to. So
that's what it ended up being. So does Chris know? Have we told him that you've started a show with him?
He does know that I've started a show with him and agreed to it.
Okay,
but he doesn't know that we've given it a whack-ass name.
That'll be a surprise for later.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe that's gonna... Yeah, ding! I'm thinking maybe that's gonna be some bonus content for both of our shows, to be honest.
Some bonus experience.
Bonus experience, misdirected something or other.
Bonus misdirected experience, Mark.
Yeah.
Ugh, let's get out of here.
Let's go.
It smells like burnt popcorn.
Margaret! Have you ever pulled off a what a twist moment? And if you have, how'd you do it?
I love doing this, so it was hard for me to like pull anything brief.
Okay.
My favorite, I had a whole game that was based on this, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I ran an online game of Exalted where all of the characters began with amnesia. And they didn't have their character sheets. Like, I made the character sheets for them, and then as we played through the first session, I would reveal things to them about, like, oh, you have this many dots in your attributes. And then
I remember sitting in on this game.
Yeah, it was a weird, like, kind of ambitious concept for baby GM Ray, but I think I pulled it off. So they were trying to figure out who they were, where they are, what was going on. They're all solars. They don't even know what solars are, so they have to figure that out. First off, the reason everyone had amnesia in the first place, as they come to realize, was because of a weapon that literally none of them could remember, even if they'd just been looking at it a second ago. Except for the one guy in the party who was attuned to it and was too nervous to say anything to anybody. So everyone else in the party was... I would mention that, like, oh yeah, so-and-so has this sword. And then I would keep going on with the rest of the game. And if they would ask me about, wait, okay, what about this sword he's got? I'd be like, what are you talking about? What sword? And just completely drop it, because that was a property of this weapon. The other property is that when you hit people with it, it wouldn't do health damage, it would do memory damage. So what happened before the game started was effectively they'd been killed by this sword. So they had complete amnesia. Then they found out that one of their staunch allies, this chosen of Serenities, who'd been helping them, was actually the one who had orchestrated the whole thing where they lost their memory. Like he killed them with this sword and then planted it on one of them. Purely because they had been complete assholes before they lost their memory, which was another thing that they had to discover about themselves through the game. So like every session there was this twist of like, oh yeah, in your technically past life you did this terrible thing to this person and that's why they're hating you now. So, and what was great about that is because I didn't give them any prompts on how to actually play their characters. So one of them was like playing like this really sweet, like earnest, like folk hero type of Zenith, who was just a really good guy and really wanted to do right by everybody. But before he basically lost himself entirely, he was just a rake who was like using people up and like, you know, broke a bunch of hearts and really fucked some people up. So he had to deal with like, oh my god, I was a monster. and that was pretty rough on him. So the campaign was peppered with them like learning all these terrible things, and then learning about how their friend had actually a pretty solid motive for cutting their brains out with the Forgotten Blade. I still am pretty proud of this game. Like I still think about it like, man, I pulled it off with that one.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Wow. I don't know how to follow that. Like I'm gonna say, I'm not sure I've ever pulled this off, but then again, it's not that I've never done like a what a twist game where like that was the end of the game. Like how exactly are we defining twist here or a surprise? Like,
and anything that makes a player go, oh wow. You know what I mean? Like, ooh, I thought it would be this thing, but it was that thing.
So I hit up my friend Sean, who has played in a lot of games, who's one of the people I used to live with. Like we ran a ton of games, and I was like, have I ever pulled off like a twist or a big surprise? And like really the only thing he could think of was I ran a Wild Hunt first edition game for people that just started out as a pretty normal dragon-blooded adventure about the Wild Hunt, and then like partway through the first story arc, their like zealous mortal buddy who had been with them the whole time fucking exalts as a solar.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It tore the party apart. Half of them went in one direction, half of them went in another. And that was like the thing that set up the rest of the campaign.
I like that.
So like that wasn't a twist.
That
wasn't a twist at the end. That was like a big reveal in the middle that then changed the way the whole campaign went. But it was intentional. Yeah. Like it was I'm gonna throw this wrench in here. Let's see what happens.
That's good.
But it wasn't like especially a mystery.
Like in an exalted game for like for a Wild Hunt game, that's fucking good. I like that.
Yeah. I mean, so you know, I've talked about running through the breach and how much I like using canon characters, and a lot of the times I'm using like really important, powerful setting characters because they're the characters you play in the war game, and so you know, I want to use them. They're my favorite characters from this other property. And in the game I was running previously, one of the PCs, as I mentioned before, is a construct, like from the ancient forgotten time before, who just like woke up one day, doesn't really remember what she was made to do, and is just this random, impossibly valuable AI, more or less.
Okay. Yeah.
So she basically got a job and made friends with like the rogue magic users, and who are on one hand like legitimate people fighting for freedom of information and like knowledge of magic and whatnot, and on the other hand are straight up terrorists.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean it's a setting that's kind of thought about its enemies pretty well, and like there's two sides of that coin. Some arcanists are like legitimate freedom fighters and whatever, and some of them are straight up terrorists. And the woman who is sort of one of the chief terrorists, I put in the background of this scene as like the supervisor of this job site, because all of the like active terrorist agents front as if they are, repairmen and whatnot, like magical repairmen.
Yeah.
They're called the Miners and Steamfitters Union. And so she gets this job, Gal gets this job, which is short for Galatea, because of course it is.
Yeah.
Gal gets this job working for the MSNU, and then she meets a woman going by the name of Annabelle Kaufman, who I like describe looking exactly like the character, but most of my players don't play the war game, so they have no idea who she looks like, what she looks like. And so Henry is sitting there like, oh my god, Monica. And and it took my player, Gal's player, a little bit to figure out what was going on, but she did eventually get wise to it. But so for a couple sessions there, I had like this particularly dangerous woman like just gradually making friends with one of my PCs.
No big deal.
No big deal. No big deal. And it's certainly no big deal because Gal is like weirdly super good at making explosives.
Oh, great. This is fun.
Gal got convinced into blowing up a train platform. And then the party was like, Gal, you have to ask us before, like, if your boss convinces you to do something weird in off hours, you need to run it by us first because it might be a terrorism.
It might be a terrorism.
You also have to double check with your boss to make sure that it's not a terrorism. You need to ask her. Listen,
don't
Gal,
do a terrorism.
Don't do a terrorism.
Oh, Gal. All right, well, thanks for listening to Bonus EXP. Remember, don't do a terrorism.
Even if your boss tells you to.
Even if your boss tells you to, that boss might be a terrorism.
Yeah, don't do it.
Now we're on the FBI watch list.
Yeah.
Hello to the FBI agent assigned to listen to our podcast.
We're talking about not doing a terrorism. Come on, man.
Yeah. Obviously, we are against terrorisms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can't.
Hey, FBI agent, if you really like this show, where you can find more.
I was gonna be like, could you subscribe to our Patreon? You probably have a decent amount of money.
Yeah, man. We'll tell you all about the terrorisms that we hate.
You can find the show and more of it at bxpcast.com, part of the Misdirected Mark Network.
Yeah, you could also email us at bonusexpcast.com. That's not our email address.
Nope, you made the same mistake I did last time.
I did the same shit you did. You can email us at bonusexpcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, that's
right. You
can
also tweet us, slide up in our DMs. We're at bonusexpcast.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's
though.
it.
No, wait. Where are you though?
Oh,
where
am I?
Twitter?
Between my keyboard and chair. But my Twitter is at Zenith Sun. What about you?
Okay. Mine is at Ray_Cole. Still got that underscore.
Yep.
That 90s kid, man. Strong. Love me some underscores.
All right.
Everybody get out, especially you, FBI agent.
Yeah, go. Get out of here. Go.
And remember,
subscribe to our Patreon. Jeez.
To subscribe to our Patreon and change it if you want to.
Yeah. Change it if you want to. Don't do a terrorism.
Don't do a terrorism. Special thanks to the following patrons of our Patreon. Thank you for patronizing us and making this episode possible. Oh, and we specifically mean Will Hammerand, Joe Amon, Charles Lines, Sean Ivy, John S., Lawrence Hawkins, and J.D. Tuttle. We're watching you to properly thank you for your generosity. I don't know what I'm doing. I just promised that I would read your names and say thank you, so thanks. All right. Bonus Experience is written and produced by Monica and Ray. Our logo and art are by Nino Studios. Our theme song is Reuse Noise with the Light by CDK and is used under the Attribution Non-Commercial Creative Commons license. While listening to this uncommon podcast, any critical hit against you becomes a normal hit. We'll see you next time.